Welcome back to another episode of Meredyth with a Y. I am your host, Meredyth Fischer, Meredyth Willett, here interviewing Jane Fischer today. She is the author of the book, If You Knew Suzy, and I'm so excited to talk to her because it's just a lovely book, so stay with us. Hello, everyone. This is Meredyth with a Y, and I am your host, Meredyth Willett. Today, we are going to go deep, changing lives, and I am giving you the keys to the castle. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
This is just I'm so excited. Your book is amazing. Let's just start with that. It is truly an inspired piece of work. So thank you so much for writing it. Like, truly, as a mother, thank you so much for writing it, because it's just profound and I couldn't put it down. So how did you decide to write a book along with everything else that you've done? And we'll even go there, of course, but how did you decide to write a book about it?
Meredyth, it's been my lifelong goal. I guess you could say it was the first item on my bucket list. Needless to say, life gets in the way. I worked full time. Had 3 children. I took care of my mom for many years, and there just wasn't enough time. There just wasn't enough hours in a day. And then I retired right before COVID. And I felt that Suzy's whole life has been an example of how to live your life. And I felt that it truly, it behooved me, number one, to memorialize her life. And I wanted everyone to know about Aunt Suzy long after we're all gone. I wanted, certainly in perpetuity, to have a documented version of what she's been all about. And then it morphed into a much bigger project, because as I wrote it, I realized how it can change other people's lives as well. And I believe that's been Suzy's purpose. I believe that if you believe in a heaven, a God, whatever, whoever, however, this is what she was sent to us to cherish, to love, to support, and to certainly through her teach lessons. So I wanted to write the book, and I was committed. It wasn't an easy task. I certainly spent many, many hours and perhaps neglected other areas of my life, but we got it written, and that was really her memoir, is to make a difference for other individuals.
So let's bring it back to the beginning. So this is the book, if you're watching live or in a rerun here. This is your book, If You Knew Suzy, Pushing Past the Boundaries of Never. Your daughter was born with what?
That was the question we asked ourselves 50 years ago. I had a perfectly normal pregnancy. For the most part, it was expected to be just a routine delivery, and it was anything but that. She turned out she was a breech birth, and when she was born, she had several abnormalities, which in and of itself wouldn't have been a problem, but put together, it indicated that my baby had some serious issues, and we didn't know what. As each day went by, we didn't know if she had sight, because she could not follow light. She was born with extra digits, like an extra pinky on both hands, which was removed surgically the next day. And of course, her head was out of proportion to her body. You didn't know by looking at her, but of course, the measurement, larger head and a tiny, tiny body. And as I say, in and of itself, they knew there was something that went awry during my pregnancy. They didn't know what. And of course, we'll talk later how it turned out to be a genetic abnormality, but we had no idea. It was etiology unknown.
Yeah.
And, as time went by, we took her all over. And one of the most renowned pediatric neurologists at Columbia Presbyterian told us that she definitely had some very serious neurological issues, which impacted her cognitive ability, her language, her motor ability, and the prognosis was very grim, very grim.
So let me take you back to this is your second child. Susie's your second. She's the middle.
Correct.
You had an older daughter, have an older daughter, Beth, and a younger son, Ben, which we'll talk about as well, because to me, those two kids are literally the picture of support and love and selflessness for a sibling. And what they, and you apologize to them throughout the book
Mhm.
for being a mom to a kid with special needs. But let me go back to the day basically that you had Susie, when you deliver this child. Okay, breech. Okay, we got breech. We can do breech, right? We could do this. I got this. We have a doctor. Life is good.
Right.
But let's go back to the moment when you deliver her. Did the doctors immediately look down and go, press pause? We have a situation here. Did it take a minute? Because I had a child who was born not well, and they like couldn't figure it out. Like it was very disjunctive. This is back in what, 1996 for my son. And even at that time, they're like hitting him, trying to get him to breathe, like, why is he gray?
Mhm.
There was even a doctor running around publicly saying, oh, the mom has herpes, which I don't and
Yeah.
didn't. So that's probably what's going on here. And so for me, it was just like, I was young. I had no clue what was going on. You trust the doctors, but all you want to do is hold your kid. Was there those moments where you're like trying to catch on what's going on in front of you?
Yes. What I didn't know, as I say, she was breech, so I was not awake when she was born.
Okay.
They had given me gas, and so they awakened me in the delivery room, and they told me I had a little girl, but I didn't see her, and I was all of 24 years old. I did have a baby, but I knew, I felt like, where's my baby? That's a
Yeah.
natural instinct. What I didn't know, of course, behind the scenes, is they were telling my husband, a lot of issues that they were concerned. When I went back she was born at 8 o'clock in the evening. By midnight, I had not seen my baby, and
Yeah.
I wanted to see her. And I remember being almost hysterical. I want my baby.
Yeah.
And at that point, our pediatrician, who was a very close friend of our family, and he was a wonderful, wonderful man, he came into the room to calm me. And he slowly started. He told me they'd be bringing my baby to me, but she had a very poor suck at the time, and they were trying to evaluate, all these abnormalities that they saw. And he started to prepare me for, Jane, we think there are some issues with the baby. We don't know what they are. And of course, I was so young. What did I know? But I knew that something's not right. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, they brought Susie to me. And when they placed her in my arms, I mean, I didn't see any anomalies. I didn't see anything wrong. I saw this beautiful, beautiful, precious little girl who, they say love at first sight, and that's what she was to me.
Yeah.
And I held her in my arms. I tried to nurse her, but she couldn't latch on to the breast. And that was part of the reason. Later on, we found out she has all these speech and language problems because of all the oral motor deficits. Um, I spent time with her when they brought her back to the nursery. About 5 o'clock in the morning, Dr. Perkel, that was the pediatrician, and my brother, who was a pediatrician as well, he was doing a fellowship at Montefiore Hospital. They came into my room, and when I saw my brother's face, he was ashen. He
Mm.
was tortured. I could see how much pain he was in. In fact, there are those moments you never forget, and his coming into the room at that time is one of them. And they began to tell me that your baby has some problems. They told me about the extra digits. They told me about her poor suck. They told me about she had become very jaundiced, which is not terribly unusual for babies. It
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But put together, it was not a good a good sign.
And as
And
a mom, like as you're even talking about it, I'm like, okay, we can do that. Okay, we got that. Okay, that's fine. It's just it's an extra digit. Fine. Like
uh,
you make it like you ignore the red flags. You're like, nope, I
yeah,
can swim through this.
yeah,
And I feel that tenacity and almost that insanity, right? You have to be a little
yes,
crazy to just power through it and just you make it make sense and you just do. And I remember when I was young, and I don't know if you got this as a mom, but I remember so many people saying to me, I just don't know how you're doing it. I
oh,
could never. I
yes,
don't know how you're doing it. And I just remember saying, like, you just do. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, let him starve?
exactly.
Like, what?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I still get that. I still get that. How did you do it?
Yeah.
You didn't think you just power through it. It's called being a mom,
Yeah.
you know, and you're in survival mode. You know, you're just you don't think about. And I had a 2.5-year-old at home too. You know, which
Yeah.
we can talk about. But the hardest, well, not the hardest, but one of at that time, I had to go home. I had to leave the hospital without Susie. Susie had to stay
Yep.
because she was so jaundiced at that point. She had to remain under those blue lights, you know.
Yep.
And that was to leave a hospital without your baby it's heart wrenching. You know, yes, I was going home to Beth, which was, thank God, a big help. But I wanted to bring Beth's sister home to her, you know. Um, it was a very, very tough time. She was in the hospital about 5 days. My husband went every day, several times a day. I went later on. Unfortunately, I was not, I could not go the first couple of days. My obstetrician didn't clear me to go.
Hmm.
So it was such a tough time. And then, of course, when we finally got her home, you know, that's when the fight to do whatever we needed to do for her began.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, you didn't really have a diagnosis. And we see this in so many other illnesses like ALS.
Yes,
It takes years sometimes for a diagnosis. You just keep picking at like, okay, there's a symptom here, and this is what happened with Susie. It's like, okay, symptom, but we still don't really know. And you didn't know for years what was the diagnosis.
exactly. In fact, we were told over and over and over again, etiology unknown,
Yeah,
which meant, I mean, there were theories. When I was 3 months pregnant, I had food, you know, I ate a fish that didn't agree. There were all kinds of theories that maybe something, well, we knew something went wrong in utero. And
yeah,
I had, before I knew I was pregnant, I took some progesterone pills to bring on my period. And of course, it didn't come because I mean, there were all kinds of theories, but that's what they were, theories. Until finally, I had to make peace with myself, you know, and say, look, I won't make, and at that time, we might never know.
yeah,
All we know is that we have this beautiful, precious baby, and I'm going to fight. And that's, you know, where the book, this is all in the book, you know, how we began. There was no Google, there were no
yeah,
computers, you know. What does that mean? You have to fight. Where do you begin? But there was, and you were kind of intimated, it's a mother's instinct, you know. You just, you don't know how, you don't know where. We went to at this time our doctor was at Columbia Presbyterian, and he was wonderful, but he knew the gravity of her brain dysfunction. And he intimated that, you know, you have a 2.5-year-old, you have a, she'll probably never walk, talk, learn. And the quality of her life is so compromised, you might want to look for a residential placement.
yeah, yeah.
I
Which
didn't
I'm
know
sure so many people did back then. I
it.
mean, like, you throw up your hands and you're just like, what do I do here? And
Exactly.
also, you have the outside noise of friends and family and a spouse, and you have the pressure of having a toddler that you're like, okay, this is going to take a lot of time, effort, energy, and money. What do I do here? How did you find center and know? because I'm very much like you as a mom. Like I know what I know and I don't want to hear a damn word.
Right.
Um,
Yep. Yep. I hear you.
and it's sometimes good, sometimes bad, but as a mother, it's always worked out for me. How did you know to just keep punching? Because throughout your book, that's the best way I could describe it, is you punched your way through the her entire life. You did. You punched through everybody.
I did. I paid. There was some collateral damage along the way, and we can talk about that later. That's in the book. But how, I don't know if I knew how, but it was a feeling. I was going to fight for this baby, whatever it took, whatever potential she had, we were going to maximize it. And she was not going to any residential placement. This was my baby. And I've never thought of myself, and this is also, it's all in the book. I wasn't particularly known to be aggressive or a fighter. I was rather a laid back, complacent individual. But Suzy brought this lioness out in me, and it's still there,
Yeah.
much to my husband's chagrin, and many, many times in our life. But I become, she needed me to fight for her. And that's exactly what I was going to do. I didn't care what anyone else thought. As a matter of fact, sometimes I had a fight, and this is all in the book, my grandparents and uncle's own husband, because they made me feel that sometimes I was being a crate bearer. I somehow was not making it worse, or we'd leave the doctor's office and my husband would repeat what the doctor said. And I'd say, are you kidding me? That's not what he said. Were you there? Did you hear him? Because he was in denial. He was in
Yeah.
total denial. And so were many people in my family. And I couldn't afford to be in denial. I'm not a Debbie Downer. I really do try to see the bright side, but not to not jeopardize my daughter's future by not acknowledging her grave limitations. And we were going to try. I didn't know how, but I began by making lots of phone calls, because that was all that was available at the time. And I knew, and this is in the book, I could buy lots of stock in Kleenex and cry for the rest of her life, or I could begin to fight. And I chose fight. And we're still fighting.
Um, well, in the book too, what I was finding is I I got a text one time from my son, and it was basically, he's 29 now. It was basically like, thanks for never seeing me as sick. Thanks for always treating me normally.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
although Suzy has so many challenges and always has had
mhm.
so many challenges, you were just like this person that was not going to ever see her as sick. Like, you knew she was sick. You were the one not in denial. So you were very cognizant of what was needed, what was happening, where she was at. However, inside of that knowledge, you were also not going to just lay down. It's a
Exactly.
very fine line, and it's very difficult to explain to people who haven't gone through it, where you treat your kid normal, even to the point where you actually put her in a normal school, trying to streamline her. I don't know what the words are, but you really did try to put her in a quote normal school with quote normal kids, um, and kind of ran into a wall with that.
Mhm, mhm. Yes. Yes, absolutely. It is a fine line, and we're still walking that line. I mean, part of Susie's, to fight for her was to fight with her,
Mhm.
because she herself always had this tenacious, this strength, uh, this cognition of knowing what she should be doing. She always watched Beth, who, and this is all in the book, was such an influential part of her life. I always say Beth was her first therapist, and probably her most important, because she included Suzy in all her play therapy. She didn't know it was therapy. She played
Yeah, right.
stores, she played schools, and it was a lot of language bombardment, um, And Susie always knew, watching Beth, what she should be doing,
Mm-hmm.
but her body and her brain dysfunction didn't allow her to do it. So it was always a balance, of trying to help her get to her goal, but understanding that she was so limited in how she got there. So we had to be very creative, and looking back, and this is all in the book, how we did this. I hope everyone reads it and we'll figure that out. We're talking 50 years ago.
Yeah.
The mentality was, well, just make them comfortable,
Yeah.
you know. And Susie deserved more than just comfortable, And we found early on an infant stimulation program, which was at Hunterton Hospital. This is when she was an infant. And we drove 2 hours a day and had to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning just to try for me to learn how to help her so that I could provide a lot of this stimulation at home. Today, it's a lot more accessible.
Yeah.
And if I could urge all parents who find out, and, I hope they're far and few between, but let's be honest, children are born with disabilities,
Yeah.
get involved in early intervention. It is critical. I probably, when she was a little older, we went to Easter Seals, and they also helped us. We went to a rehabilitation program, and it's so critical to get early intervention for any child that's born with any kind of disability, because this is my theory. I'm not a doctor. I do believe there's a lot of plasticity in the brain, and you have to bombard those areas that are
Yeah.
intact, so that you kind of reroute the wiring.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I think too is, like looking back at, like you're saying, 50 years ago, you were spearheading so many different, I mean, ideas and ideologies and belief systems. Like you said, like she's never going to walk. Like this is pushing past the boundaries of never. She's never going to walk. She's never going to talk. She's never going to live a normal life. She's never, 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 never. And you just were blind to that, to her benefit, to your benefit. Um, why are you so darn stubborn?
and again, it was quite my mother who was my brothers were quite astonished. I lost my father many years ago, but it wasn't who I was known to be. I wasn't that aggressive powerhouse, I was a plain Jane, but Susie, and maybe that's what, no, not maybe, that is what her gift to me was.
Yep.
Um, I always say that my husband married one woman, and then he had to learn to live with a whole other one,
Yeah. Yeah. Same here.
I'm not sure he was thrilled about that, but that's what she did to me. I just was driven by I'm never giving up. And I wasn't blinded to all her disabilities. They were very real to me. I
Yeah.
lived with them and I knew them. But I was driven by the fact, regardless of her disabilities, whatever she can do, we're going to find a way to make it happen. And and also, Meredyth, that's who she was.
Yeah.
She wanted it. She was so tenacious. She was so courageous. She was so driven that I've always thought of myself as maybe the wind beneath her wings, because, and the perfect story, I don't want to give too much away, but she didn't walk till she was 4 years old. And I think this story alone I will share with you because it demonstrates who she is. We found this panda bear, which has, the toy with the four wheels that before children walk, they learn. And anyway, long story short, this became her legs. And this will
Yeah.
demonstrate who Suzy is. This panda bear became her legs. Anyway, long story short, and you have to read the book, it goes into more detail. The panda bear was stolen. And she refused. We went out, I think we bought every other four-wheel toy on the market. Secondhand, junk, garage sales, whatever. She refused to ride anything else. And it wasn't because she was misbehaved. It was just that this panda bear was her legs,
Yeah.
and she wanted her legs back. And I'm going to leave you a little bit on the as a cliffhanger here, to because I don't want to divulge too much. But that's who Suzy was. She
Yeah.
tasted it. She wanted to walk. The panda bear was her legs. She was not giving up, and she is still that way. She is very determined. She is very, as I said before, um, very resilient. She wants to know, she knows what she wants, and she's going to find a way to get to it, to achieve it.
Like mother, like daughter.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm gonna take a left really quick.
Okay.
So I am a very spiritual person, and I do as a business is my real career besides just podcasting, is I do some past life regression. And one of the things I've learned about past lives, whether you believe this or not, it
I
is what it
do.
is. Okay,
Mhm.
um, is that in spirit world there is a line forever long of souls waiting to get into the bodies of handicapped babies, mentally, physically, whatever, because they come in and, first of all, remove so much karma from their own soul. So, like, they learn so much and they grow so much in a very rapid period of time, but also because they teach everyone around them, they grow everyone around them, and they they're just a blessing, right? And so many times, as the three-dimensional selves that we are, we look at them like, oh my gosh, thank gosh this, and thank goodness that. No, I'm so happy that my kids have this and are, quote, normal. But with Suzy, as I was reading the book and knowing what I know about souls coming in to bodies that have challenges, that is exactly how I watched her go through her life by way of you writing about it, is how she just challenged you. She challenged her dad. She challenges her brother and sister, and they just blossom into these amazing children and now adults. The doctors, the nurses, the camp counselors, the other camp kids, the the teachers, even the ones that are like, hey, this isn't for her. You're not doing her a service.
Mhm.
Um, I just saw that blessing that she came here to earth to be really play out in every capacity. As you've even said, you weren't this person and
Mhm.
now you are because of her. And had she never existed, or had she been not Suzy the way that Suzy is, you wouldn't be Jane the way you are.
Absolutely. Mhm. Mhm. I'm so glad you touched upon this, because I don't always talk about this, because be a believer. And honestly, Meredith, I truly believe with every fiber of my soul that Suzy was sent to us. She is our angel. She is our celestial being who was sent to us to nurture, to care for, to support, to to shape. And I, honest to God, I really do believe that she is an angel on this earth. I don't know why her life is so difficult. I don't know why she is had to endure so much pain and still does. But if you look through the Bible, if you look through all the characters that have touched lives the most, Jesus, Moses, all the beings that have made such a difference. Now, I'm not putting her, my other children laugh at me. They say, Mom, you're putting her in the same class as Jesus and Moses and, God. No, I don't know. But I do know I've watched it, I've witnessed it, I've seen her melt the hardest of hearts. I've had doctors ask me who never make eye contact with her because they don't think she'll understand very much. But after she makes a statement like, Mom, let Dr. So and so go home. He's got children. It's Father's Day. Let him go. They look at me and they say, What planet does she come from?
Yeah.
I've seen her with people who were angry and nasty and mean, and she just doesn't give up. She keeps going and talking to them, and Meredith, she's not able to lie or manipulate or in any way. She has no guile. That's higher level thinking.
Yeah.
It's truly pure soul, pure of heart and pure soul. And she has made a difference for others. And I think that's it. When you read the book, you'll see it throughout the book. While her life has been so difficult, I truly believe she is an old soul who was put on this earth to make us better people.
Yeah.
I've seen her do it. I've witnessed it over and over again. And each time she does, it validates what I know, and that Suzy is an angel on this earth.
I agree with you 100%. The way she just so of course I have it in my head, the reader.
Yeah.
Not often do we get to talk to the actual author of books, so that's kind of a blessing. But as the reader, she just kind of like lands places, right? She lands at camp and she just kind of just goes, she just talks, she just says like, we are doing this and I am Suzy, and
Yes.
and this
Right.
is my mom, and blah blah blah. She
Yeah.
just kind of takes over the whole situation, and you're not expecting that.
No.
You're expecting this very demure, quiet,
Yes.
maybe says a few words, whatever, and she just kind of rolls over when she becomes an adult, and she knows what she wants. And there's so many parts of this where I'm like, oh my gosh, you, Jane, are holding her back, and she would literally go to the
Yeah.
moon if we would just give her a damn rocket, because
Exactly.
she just didn't know. She knows her boundaries, but she also doesn't care about them. It's like, when my physical body stops, then I'll stop moving. But until then, I'm pushing,
Yes.
just like
Exactly.
you did.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's still doing that. She's still doing that. And she astounds everyone, even in some of the most prominent doctors. She astounds them with her ability to reach out and touch. She astounds them with her ability to never give up, and to be very cognizant of what I'm feeling, what they're feeling. Um, the other day, I'll just as in a quick aside, um, my son and daughter took Suzy out to dinner. They didn't want me to come. It was their time with Suzy. And my son texted me. He said, Mom, she's very funny, and she doesn't try to be funny,
Right, right.
but it's her sincerity. And apparently they were talking about me. I think that was one of the reasons for this dinner date, and they were worried about me for various reasons. And my older daughter said something about, well, I don't understand why Mom's not sleeping. And Suzy said to my son, this, and my daughter, she said, you don't understand why she's not sleeping. It's because of you. And it's because of you. It's because of me. What's there not to understand? Now, for all intents and purposes, Meredyth, if you saw her IQ, if you heard all the prognoses, you would never have expected her to be able to come to this conclusion.
Yeah.
But it's and this is in the book too. It demonstrates, and I urge educators, people, don't sentence someone because of a score, because of a number, because what her IQ might lack, her EQ, which is emotional intelligence, is off the charts, and you don't expect it, but it's
And
there.
how many times when people looked, I mean, this is why I want you guys to read this book, because this exemplifies the reality of so many humans on this planet, so many kids, so many everything. Is you look and you go, the paperwork says no, and I
Right.
have to believe the paperwork. And you said, got it, that's fine, but let me bring her to you.
Yes.
Let
Yes.
let let her just come talk to you, please. I'll drive the 2 hours. I'll drive the 3 hours. I'll drive the 5 hours.
Yeah.
Let me bring Suzy in, and if you say no after you meet her, and this is a child with huge difficulties,
Mhm. Mhm.
huge
Mhm.
genetic problems, and you say, "Just meet her." And she just rolls up like the queen of
Yeah.
hearts, literally, and is just like, hi, I would like to see your camp and XYZ." And you're just and everyone's blown away, and they're like, sorry, I judged her
Exactly.
by who she is on paper. And
Mhm.
you had to do this over and over and over. And I think that, you know, so my son has high frequency hearing loss bilateral. He can't hear a whistle without hearing aids. But he learned that when the hockey referee blows his whistle, his head bobs.
Oh, oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so he knew when to hit the puck. And we didn't even know he had hearing loss because he was reading all of our lips. The only time I learned that is he would ride behind me on the bike, and the whole time he could hear my low frequency duh buh. He could
Oh,
hear that I'm saying words, but he couldn't read my lips because he's behind me.
right.
It's amazing how kids can adapt. And
Yes.
it's so important to not just look at not only other children or other people, but your own kids,
Exactly.
and know, but also ignore it. Again, back to the thin line that you have to walk when dealing with these kids, because Suzy just would blow everybody away. They're like, what are you feeding her? Like, what's going
Exactly. And I have been asked that, not what I'm feeding her, but
right?
what I don't, truthfully, you talk about as the old soul. I just believe that, and I don't want to get too involved in spirituality or religion or whatever, because I don't think it crosses the boundaries of
Yeah.
religion, but it's just who she is. She is so good and so kind and so pure, and she just makes a difference. She has made more of a difference in all our lives and so many other lives than most people who live to 100,
Yeah. Hmm.
and again, it's not only her special needs. We haven't even, I'll just when she finally got to a point where she wanted to live independently, and that's with supervision. We found out she was an end stage kidney failure.
Yeah.
Um,
Which about took me out, by the way. Thank you so much, because I was literally in Michigan away for the weekend, relaxing, reading this book, and I was holding my breath for every page, praying that at the end of this dang book that she was still alive, because I you're you said she's still alive. So I
yes,
go,
yeah,
but
very much,
I was praying in every page because she was at death's door.
several times. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. And it's very hard for me because I can't imagine. Susie and I are connected at the hip, um, and at the heart, and I I can't imagine my life without. In fact, I guess maybe I will share that, with you. I've also said to God, if He's going to take her, then take me too, because I can't
I get
imagine
that.
my life without
I
her.
get that. But just, and you have to go back to Beth
Yes,
and
and Ben.
Ben, your
Yes,
other two children, and realize that, you have to stay for them. And
absolutely.
I get what you're saying as a child, as a parent of a kid that was, I remember they gave my son last rites. I remember
Yes,
coming to, I don't know if it's be okay or
mhm,
accept that he was
yes,
gonna die. I remember having that weird sense of calm,
yeah,
but I also, thank God, ended up having a daughter 2 years after Cody, and knowing um, that they deserved a mom too, like, as much of as
exactly.
Beth is a very full-time job. And even Beth
Yes,
is yelling at you in the book, which I love.
yes,
Like, "Ma,
yeah,
get a life. Go
right,
hang out with dad. Enough
yeah,
already. Let me live
right,
my life." So she's
right.
on board too, PS.
Absolutely. As is my son, who, has said to me over and over again, and, you'll read it all in the book, you don't get through this whole trauma without it impacting relationships. And certainly while my husband and I are still together, and I credit him so much for that, for sticking by us, it took a toll. It took a big toll. And my son has said to us, and my daughter, go away with dad. He needs some. In fact, Susie has said,
Yeah,
Dad
she
needs
has.
some attention. you know,
Yeah.
go and we'll be there for her. And they have been. They have been. My son, as I said to you, Beth was her first cheerleader, and then my son became her cheerleader, her coach, her dear, 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 dear friend, and he still is. I mean,
Yeah.
as and you'll read, I don't want to give too much away, you'll read all about that in the book, how he was the one who, and he was a tough coach. He said, you're going to Special Olympics and we're going to start training, and he worked with her every single day. And still, she's been in the hospital so many times, and she'll say, when am I going to see Benny? And I'll call him up and he's there. He is, they're both there. And I have to say, they chose their mates, their spouses, based on how they interacted with Susie. Now, I'm not saying that was right or wrong. I'm not making a judgment, but they let their future spouse know that if they were going to be in their lives, then it was very important they totally accept Susie and love her. And they did, and now they're
Yeah.
passing that message on to their children.
Well, I can't imagine them wanting to be with a human that didn't want to be that type of energy anyways. Like, just I
Exactly.
can't imagine it. You are on Instagram and Jane Fischer author. You're on TikTok and Facebook as author Jane Fischer, and that's Fischer. Don't forget the C. Your book is available on Amazon and
And Barnes
it
and Noble.
and
What?
Barnes and Noble. So this is If You Knew Suzy, Pushing Past the Boundaries of Never. Um, It's excellent. It has photographs, which I loved. That just made me like just I love that. You can see the picture of her on the back here with her big huge smile. Um, and there's other photos throughout the book. It is a book for anybody. It's a book for anybody who maybe is complacent, who says, I can't, that's not for me, that's not for my kid, that's not for whatever, where you have a block in your life and you need a kick in the ass. This book is for you, because I will tell you, when you are done reading this book, there is no such thing as never, there's no such thing as can't, there's no such thing as shouldn't. And you start looking at the world around you, be it school or clubs or friends or whatever, and stop believing um, the no's. Basically, you stop believing like, oh, that's not for me, because in this book, there are so many things that, quote, weren't for Suzy. And you said, think again. Think again, my dear. We're,
Yes.
we're going to be doing this today.
Yes.
So, it's a nice, it's an easy read. It's a very well written read. Great summer read to get you off of your butt, and just stop believing boundaries. Stop believing the boundaries that society puts up for you or your kids or your family member or your friends even, and make the bucket list and go knock it out. And I also believe that this is a great book that exemplifies the change that special needs or challenged humans, that they do have a place on this planet. They are important. They aren't throwaway. They aren't a detriment, as so many messages have come through lately about kids that are challenged or humans that are challenged on this planet. They are very beneficial. They have a place in society. And so often it is to teach us about the words never. So thank you so much for writing this, Jane. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. And just as Suzy has done all her life, this book is a way to hopefully change lives. And I beseech everyone, to not for me, for you to please read it and learn how to keep fighting.
It's so excellent. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I will see you here next week. Thank you so much, Jane, for being on. Check out her book, If You Knew Suzy, Pushing Past the Boundaries of Never by Jane Fischer with a CHER. And I'll see you guys here next week. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you would like to connect on a more personal level, head over to meredythwillits.com or on Instagram at Meredyth with a Y. For behind-the-scene footage and outtakes, please subscribe and come back each week for more Meredyth with a Y. Thanks again.